and there's intimacy on the radio, and there's naturalness on the radio that can never be replicated on TV. The marvelous resurgence of radio as a political force in this country.
News-related radio programming is evolving.
There's a huge hole in our dialogue that can be filled by the synthesis of traditional radio and the freedom that comes from a live podcast. You're about to experience Cowboy State Politics live. Here we go. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to another tremendous installment from very high above all the puerile and insipid forms of Wyoming mainstream media. This is Cowboy State Politics. I, of course, am your illustrious host, David Iverson, firmly ensconced behind the silver Cowboy State Politics microphone and broadcasting to you from the base of the Bighorns at the Cowboy State Politics Studio in Sheridan, Wyoming. Good morning, my friends, and welcome to the program. Happy Tuesday. Now, just to start the program, I have just sort of a general question. What do you do if you're embroiled in the middle of a gigantic controversy? Agent 29, let's say that you were embroiled in some sort of controversy. What's the first thing that you should do?
I have no idea how to respond to that. I've never known controversy.
No, never have. Nobody's ever accused you of being a member of the Oath Keepers or anything like that.
Fundamentally, is the controversy stirred by my actions or someone else's?
Well, yeah, it would be your actions.
Oh, well, that couldn't happen.
Yeah, well, no, clearly
but
not.
if it did, I would have to say, tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yeah, now, would you stick right there and just grab the bull by both horns and just deal with it?
Well, that's a little hard to just do it theoretically. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it is.
Yeah,
this is true.
That's generally my approach, is like Admiral Nelson said, never mind maneuvers, just go straight at them. And as long as you're telling the truth.
Yeah, it doesn't really have to worry about anything, do you?
Yeah.
Well, that is not how the superintendent of public instruction is handling controversy. Now, the controversy I'm talking about is basically screwing over a whole bunch of parents in Sweetwater County. And, all right, maybe it wasn't Megan's fault directly, but they did release sensitive and what should have been confidential information for a whole bunch of parents in Sweetwater County. And I guess you could blame it on her staff, but there again, in these sorts of situations, poop rolls uphill. But Megan has decided that in the middle of this controversy, she's going to implement a new strategy.
Yeah, it's Tuesday morning. I haven't moved around much yet. Blame it on the staff. Military leadership is the last thing you ever do.
Yes.
The buck stops here. You take responsibility for everything. And you also never blame it on your superiors. You don't go to your people
and
say,
accept responsibility for what you did.
Well, and you accept responsibility for what leadership has done. Let me give you an example. Colonel gives you a very unpopular order, but you've got to go down and carry it. You don't go down and say, hey, the old man says we got to do this, so we got to do it.
No, you say, we're doing this.
You go down and say, this is what we're going to do. You have to own it.
Right. And I think that is probably the best answer to my question is you just own it. But that is not what Superintendent of Public Instruction Megan Felder. That's a lot easier to say. She decided to go to Washington D.C. to the Easter egg roll. Ken, would you put my screen up there so we can see Megan Felder at the Easter egg roll? There we go. I made a quick trip to attend the White House Easter egg roll today, hosted by President Donald Trump and First Lady Melania. It was a wonderful celebration of Easter, blah, blah, blah. Now, who is able to hop on a plane the day before the Easter egg roll and fly to Washington D.C. and then fly back? And why would you, if there's a whole bunch of crap that your office has created that you should be dealing with?
What plane did she take? Just ask.
Yeah, well, that's a valid question. Hey, Governor Gordon, you know my phone number. If Megan used the state jet to go to Washington, D.C., give me a call. Let me know. Anyway, so on today's program, surprisingly, there's not a lot of local stuff going on. So I have a few national stories to tell you about, and we're going to take some calls. I realize that it's Tuesday and it's not necessarily Open Line Friday. But if you want to be part of the program, the phone number in the studio is 307-374-8989, 307-374-8989. I'm pretty much up for anything you want to talk about. So we'll go ahead and leave the phone lines open the entire program. And we may cut out of here a little bit early. I've got a couple of appointments to do this morning. So anyway, we begin, though, with Breitbart News. Now, years ago, in the mid to late 1990s, the Great Britain, the UK, embarked on a plan to rid their country of evil firearms. And they started with automatic weapons, and then crime didn't go down. And so they thought, well, maybe we ought to take away semi-automatic weapons. And so they decided, all right, we're going to ban semi-automatic firearms, pistols, rifles, etc. And then crime didn't go down. In fact, crime in some areas started to increase. And so they took that as a clear indication that crime must have been increasing from bolt action and shotguns. And so they banned bolt action rifles and shotguns. And much to their surprise, crime with knives and clubs and rocks and baseball bats went up. Well, now they're suffering the results of this. And this is a piece from Breitbart News. And it was started by James Woods. And if you're a fan of Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, and you like interesting people to follow, James Woods is one of those. So he posted on X, and it says, quote, "Our friends, the Brits, went from relinquishing their right to bear arms in 1997 to standing on the edge of the Islamist abyss today. Our Second Amendment is not about the right to go duck hunting, folks. It's about keeping power in the hands of the people." Well, after the British decided to do away with firearms, then they embarked on this whole quest of open borders. You see, we shouldn't, all people deserve to go everywhere. And in the European Union, that's pretty much what they did. Every country still had borders, I guess, technically. But really, if you were a member of the European Union, you could pretty much go anywhere. Well, in the UK, it has resulted in a surge. It probably isn't even the right word. An avalanche of Islamist immigration into their country. Well, here's what Breitbart says about it. And I quote, "Actor James Woods used a Sunday night X post to note that the Brits went all in on disarming their people in the late 20th century and is now standing on the edge." Woods wrote, and I just read that one to you, on September 24th of 2024, Breitbart observed that gun control in Britain was instituted in stages, beginning just after World War I and continuing in a reactionary fashion with increasing strictness throughout the 1990s. The final phase of the controls were implemented via the Firearm Act of 1997, which was adopted after a man attacked an elementary school in Dublin, Scotland, using legally owned guns. The Firearm Act of 97 virtually ended handgun ownership and made the acquisition of a certificate to possess a long gun an onerous and time-consuming one. So while technically you can possess a long gun, either a shotgun or a rifle, you have to get a permit, and the process to get a permit is so onerous that most people don't even attempt it. One immediate result was skyrocketing violent crime. By 2009, 12 years after the Firearms Act was passed, the Daily Mail reported that Britain, quote, was the most violent country in Europe. They also reported that Britain's home figures showed that, quote, the UK had a worse rate of all types of violence than the United States or, get this one, South Africa. In addition to the violence, Britain's post-disarmament era has also opened the door to a societal suicide. Ooh, say that one 10 times fast. James was described as the Islamist abyss. Writing in The Spectator in 2025, Ed Hussein wrote on the Islamist threat to Britain's future, but did so from abroad because of the danger that he no longer felt safe in Britain, because they have anti-free speech measures in Britain. So if you offend anybody, well, you can be arrested. And I mean, remember the comic that he was in the United States and he did a bit about the Islamists in Great Britain. Well, and I think there was part of it was about homosexuals too. But anyway, he was arrested when he got off the plane from the U.S. And so not only do you not have the right to possess yourself or to defend yourself, wow, you don't have the right to free speech either. Now, here's what he said. Quote, I'm writing this article from abroad because I don't currently feel safe in Britain, the country of my birth and where I grew up. Why? Because I've written books and articles exposing the warning about the danger of Islamism in the UK. I'm not alone in feeling threatened. Many of our media organizations, universities, charities, government departments, and judges live in fear of offending an extremist underworld, which has been strengthened by the disaster of the Israel-Gaza war. And let's see here. On September 7th, 2024, the Hoover Institute observed, quote, the cultural carapace of Britishness, man, it's like I wrote this thing using $10, $15 words wherever possible, which has served as an umbrella term to bind together the four indigenous nations of England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland, as well as immigrant ethnic groups, is breaking apart under the pressure of economic inequality, mass immigration, and radical Islam. Woods used the latter portion of that Sunday night expose and urged Americans to use the British example to remind ourselves of why the Founding Fathers hedged in the right to keep and bear arms. In other words, our Second Amendment is not about the right to go duck hunting, deer hunting, or clay pigeon shooting, etc. The Second Amendment, my friends, is about protecting yourself, your family, and your country from tyranny. Period. End of sentence. It is tyranny protection, and that's all that it is. All the other stuff, hunting and clay pigeon shooting and 22 planking, all of those are ancillary benefits to the Second Amendment, but really it's about tyranny protection. And you can see very clearly what happens when a country disarms itself. And there are still people in this country, even though we have Trump in the White House, there is still an undercurrent of trying to ban semi-automatic firearms. And you see it in blue states. I mean, they don't really care what the Supreme Court says. There are still radical leftists that think that you don't have a right to protect yourself. Now, fortunately, in Wyoming, I mean, I think that we're pretty well set up with firearm, your Second Amendment protections, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Although I think that there's always some improvement, as Agent 29, you're fond of saying.
Well, there's always improvement, but none of this is any stronger than our ability to defend it. If you were a pioneer and you went out and staked out a claim, this is my land.
Right, homestead.
Fine, yeah, this is your land. Only if you can defend it. And what has shocked me is, I would call it an unwillingness on the part of people who ought to know better to adequately defend our God-given right to self-defense, our God-given rights to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. All of these things, it's like, we never earned it. It was just handed to us. And so we don't really value it like we should.
Well, and that's just the point. It's our mutual friend, former Representative Jennings, often says that we live based on the memory of a memory. In other words, the people that started this country, the only reason that we were able to have a country at all is that they had firearms. And so when they wrote the Second Amendment, it was pretty easy. It was, well, this is to protect protect us from Great Britain and other countries that might want to take us over. I mean, it was very clear. Well, then, a couple of generations pass, and then it becomes, your right to go shoot a deer. And now here we are 250 years later, give or take a little bit, because the 250 years, that was the Declaration of Independence in 1776. So, 1787, a couple of years later, we're way removed from that. And now most people don't have any clue what the Second Amendment is all about.
I think the best thing that we could do for preserving gun rights would be the very first step. It would be putting firearms training as mandatory back in schools.
It's not been that long since we've had that.
I can remember even when I was in high school, everybody carried. I had a couple of guns in my wall locker, and nobody thought a thing of it.
In your locker?
Yes.
Okay, now that's interesting.
Yeah. I had a pistol there because I was in wood shop. I was building a new hand grip, and rather than tote it back and forth, and they just said, well, put it in your locker and lock it up when you're done. And nobody really cared because if you really wanted one, you could just go out to the parking lot.
Well,
in the
that's
back
just
of
what I was
almost
going
every
to say.
pickup,
Yeah.
which was unlocked with the windows rolled down and probably the keys in the ignition. There'd be a rifle or two on the back because you might see a coyote on the way home.
Right.
So it was just a different culture, and that's part of what I'm getting at. Is at the time the Second Amendment was written, every family had firearms. They were an essential tool in that part of life. And that has changed. And I'm not saying we need to go to a culture where everybody behind every tree is armed.
There's a lot more polite society.
Yeah. But what I am saying is I understood from a really early age the magnitude of shooting a rabbit in the head with a .22.
Oh, yeah.
And I watched it die, and I understood the power of that and began to respect it. And, we were raised hunting, fishing, whatever, and when you're raised farming, ranching, death is a routine part of life.
Yeah.
And that's something that, our entire culture is insulated from death and makes it surreal.
Well, okay, I understand what you're saying. Insulated, I don't know. Maybe that's the right word.
Yeah, if somebody dies, they usually do so in a nursing home or a hospital room or something, not on their bed in the home with the family gathered around.
The way I was
There's
going to characterize it is generally in Wyoming, we don't have a lot of crime, though it is on the rise in places like Casper and Cheyenne.
Everywhere, really.
And we're kind of where we're at, other places in Wyoming, we're sort of isolated from, the need to possess a firearm.
Yeah, it's not a necessary everyday tool as it was when we were foraging. When we were trying to conquer the West.
When I was in high school, you could bring a firearm into school, for wood shop. There were a couple of guys that were making stocks for their, for their rifle or their pistol. But the way that it would work, and I graduated in 97, so, 25 years ago, 28, whatever it is. I can't do math this morning.
I was almost 50 years ago.
Yeah. See, I mean, did you still have chalkboards in the classroom where you didn't have a notebook? You just, wrote on your personal chalkboard?
Oh, we had both.
Okay.
Peaches. We had peaches.
But anyway, so if you needed a firearm to build a stock or something, you would take it to the office, and then the wood shop teacher would come up to the office, grab the firearm, and then he would lock it away. And then, you take your measurements or whatever, and then you'd take the firearm out. But like you say, you could go to the parking lot, and in my vehicle, I had a gun rack with a couple of rifles in it, and never really had a problem. And if you've noticed, Ken, like driving around, most people don't have a gun rack in their pickup anymore.
Now those have gone away, and understandably so. But still, if you go out and spend any time on anybody's ranch, there's at least one firearm right by the door, generally in case there's a coyote coming in to attack your livestock or whatever. Or maybe the neighbor's dog crossed the fence again, chasing sheep, so you got to take that thing out.
God, that's a pellet rifle.
Yeah.
Pellet rifle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
.338 caliber pellet
Oh, God.
rifle.
You're terrible. But I think the point here is that we're, even today, we are so far removed from the necessity of the Second Amendment that we don't really pay too much attention to it, and to our detriment. Because again, as the piece points out, as James Woods points out, 1997 was not that long ago, when Britain decided to completely get rid of firearms, and now look at them. You have no-go zones in
Wasn't
London.
that long ago, and you were still a high school punk, right? Is that-
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
high school anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway,
Well, we were all punks in high school. Trust me.
speak for yourself. Many people would say that I still am. Okay, so a race that we haven't really talked about is the superintendent of public instruction race. And so far, we've got two candidates in there. We have our pal Tom Kelly, currently representative for House District 30 in the Wyoming House of Representatives. He's thrown his hat in to run for superintendent of public instruction. And we got another guy, a staffer for Go Green Gordon. And there is a lengthy piece in the Pravda on the Platte this morning.
Notice how the sound didn't break the windows on that one.
I noticed.
Yeah.
All right. So, in an article entitled, "Here's What Two Candidates for State Superintendent Had to Say About Education Issues." And this thing, it's the better part of a whole page in the Pravda on the Platte. But here's how it starts out. The Wyoming Superintendent of Public Instruction oversees the education department and has a lot of power over education across the state. Two candidates have announced they will be running for the position. That current Superintendent Megan Degenfelder is not seeking re-election. She's running for governor. No. Right now, she's in D.C. running to push Easter eggs around the White House lawn, or at least she was yesterday. Both candidates will appear on the Republican ballot during the primary election. Kelly describes himself as a lifelong educator. He is currently the political science department chairman at American Military University. He's got a master's degree in education and a PhD in political science. Before that, he was a public school teacher. Auer, I think that's how you pronounce his name, started out working as a teacher in public schools, which he describes as the hardest job he's ever had. He said he's also worked as a school administrator on the district level.
And I'm not in any way impugning teachers or how difficult that job is. I'm just analyzing that sentence. It's the hardest job I've ever had. That means absolutely nothing until you put it in perspective. Okay, what other jobs might you have had?
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I get so tired of words mean things.
2 + 2 is 4, not 5 if you want it to be 5. And this is not to be discriminatory. This is to stand up for language. Words mean things.
Okay, so continuing on with the Pravda. Both individuals also have experience at the state level. Kelly, as I said, he's a representative, and Auer is the chief of staff and deputy superintendent for the Wyoming Department of Education. And so, as he is the deputy superintendent, it also means that he's kind of responsible for this whole Sweetwater County mess also. Most recently, Auer served as the senior policy advisor to Governor Mark Gordon until he stepped down in March to pursue his candidacy. Now, the bulk of the article it's a front page piece, just a column, and then if you go over to, I think it was like page 4, is when you get to more of the issues. And if you scroll down or turn the page, whichever version you're looking at, there's a section called Required State Assessments. Kelly said that standardized testing has a place in education, but it shouldn't be the primary focus. First, if standardized tests are the primary focus of your education system, then you are, by definition, teaching to the test. A test is a measure of how much you have learned. And so if we are making an argument that our public schools are merely teaching to the test, then we have a far bigger problem than our superintendent of public instruction hanging out at the White House Easter egg roll. Quote, "I just think that we're ready for an examination, a whole-scale examination of standards and assessment, and with the idea of what parts are working for us," Auer said. "And now, specific to your question, I would like to investigate as a state I would love to have conversations with school board members, educators, parents at the state level. What is the best assessment system? And the only reason I'm reading this whole thing is it's a bunch of gobbledygook. Okay, so what is the best assessment system that we could possibly have, again, to achieve the goal of giving educators and parents real-time data that can be used to inform instruction? I don't know what any of that means, except to say that we do have state assessments that apparently show our education system is failing. Now you'll notice in the piece, and of course you can't see it, but if you pull it up online, it's front page of the Pravda on the Platte, the Casper Star Tribune. I don't think that state assessments are the number one issue, and yet that is the first thing they go after. Why, you might ask? Because it is only the state assessment that gives us a glimpse into the performance of teachers. You know, right now we have half of the kids in this state are not reading at a proficient level. And the truth is it gets worse as the kids get older. That whole, when I say half the kids in this state can't read, that's based on, it was a study that was done, and I think it was Senator Charlie Scott that first brought it up in the legislature. But he pointed out that only 46% of eighth graders in Wyoming could read at or above a proficient level. That's absolutely shocking. And the very first thing the Pravda on the Platte is bringing up is state assessments. I think we have far deeper issues than what kind of test. Now, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, there's a couple more issues on this article I want to talk about, and then we're going to go to our pal Dave Simpson and the Cow Pie. Back in a minute. Yeah, I know. The weather seems to be toying with us. 60 one day, 42 the next, and pretty soon, my friends, those 6s and 4s are going to turn into 3s and 2s. Though we all want to avoid it, that white stuff is coming, my friends, and you will be shoveling the walk in it. It's cold, it's unpleasant, and nobody likes to do it. But you could make it just a little bit more comfortable and prevent your feet from turning into a giant block of ice. In fact, you could keep them nice and warm and toasty, and your toes will never even know that they're outside. The rest of you may be frozen solid, but at least your feet won't be. To make all this happen, you just need a pair of socks from the Buffalo Wool Company. They are the finest socks that I've ever put on my feet. To get you a pair, go to their website, thebuffalowoolco.com. Trust me, you won't be disappointed. Are you one of those guys that listen to the president just a little bit too closely and now you're tired of winning? Are you getting the feeling that there's been way too many good things happening in our country and you just can't take it anymore? Well, if you are, and you think you should follow Rosie O'Donnell's example and get the heck out of Dodge, you need to call Rebecca Bextel at eXp Realty. She'll make those foreign country living ideas a reality for you. All you have to do is call 307-699-3519, and she'll make sure some freedom-loving, red-blooded American will now live in the home that you no longer want. If you want to sell your house, or if you want to buy one that's way better than the house you have right now, give Rebecca a call. Again, her phone number is 307-699-3519.
I've never felt the freedom like I do. I feel stronger every day, don't you? Well, I can show you how. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna get stronger. A new day, a new way. Watch out, I'm only gonna
Cowboy State Politics is only going to get stronger. This program is expanding faster than anybody can keep up. Well, I certainly can't keep up with it anyway. The Cowboy State Politics Podcast, Cowboy State Politics Live, the Open Range Record. If you go to the Open Range Record right now, there's a great piece written by Tina Johnson right on the front page. And it's a discussion about the Wyoming Education Association and their ties to the National Education Association. And, you know, if anybody tells you that this is, well, it's not a union. No, it's an association. Or, you know, we don't really have that much to do with the NEA. All of that is bullcrap. It is just an arm of the National Education Association. And if you look at their rhetoric, their messaging on social media, it's all the same stuff. So it's a great article. Go check it out. Also, the Campbell County Republican women are hosting Kyle Mann from the Babylon Bee on April 18th. You know, politics is funny. Politicians are hysterical sometimes. And, you know, just the things that they say and the things that they do. And we should laugh at them. We should make fun of the stupid stuff that they do. And that is exactly what Kyle Mann does. And so if you want an evening, a fun evening, and you want to laugh at some politicians, it's April 18th in Gillette. Go to CampbellCountyRepublicanWomen.com and you can get tickets. Hopefully the lovely Christine and I will be there. So you can come see us, go have some fun with Kyle Mann. It'll be a great time. So before the break, we were talking about this gigantic piece in the Pravda on the Platte about the two superintendent candidates. Now, the next section that we're going to talk about is the education savings accounts. And I have to tell you, I have mixed feelings about this. Partly because the Constitution, I think, is pretty clear. And it says that the state should give no money to anybody, really, that is not under the absolute control of the state. The second problem I have with the education savings account law is the big, gigantic entitlement that is on it. That is the universal pre-K. Now, of course, the courts took care of the ESA bill, and so, you know, we don't have to really worry about it. But here's what the Pravda says, quote, the state enacted the Steamboat Legacy Scholarship Act in 2025, but it is currently on pause because of court challenges. The Pravda Star Tribune asked the candidates if they support the education savings account and if they would change anything about the system. Here's what Tom Kelly said, quote, I see educational savings accounts as in addition to the public school system, Kelly said. They're often negatively portrayed as trying to undercut the public school system. But the ESA program is a separate program from the school foundation. The funding comes from the general fund, and it is offering options for families when the one-size-fits-all policy in the school system isn't working. Okay, so let's just talk about Kelly's comments on it. So in addition to the public school system, first, I think that, and Ken, perhaps you can speak to this. I mean, you were right in the middle of this whole thing. I think that our public school system in general needs a complete overhaul. And that when you add things on top of it, you're just kind of, you're overtaking the plumbing. You're adding another couple of steps in the Rube Goldberg machine. And, you know, just the anecdotal comments that I've heard about this thing when parents could sign up for it is you still can only use that state money on state approved vendors. And I mean, again, it goes into tracking the money and all of that. But I personally think that the best thing you can do for your kid is get them the heck out of this public school system.
Yeah, I think to me, the real answer would be a constitutional amendment to remove public education altogether.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Is that going to happen? No,
No.
That's not going to happen. So anything you do short of that then just becomes a compromise. And the reason I say that is the same reason I don't like the economic development plans and the Wyoming Business Council idea is you're taking public money and doing what individuals should be doing with that public money. each parent should be responsible for their children and getting them educated. Oh, but what about the kids that don't have parents? Okay, let's set up the ideal first, or the way that it should be. Parents need to be responsible, but as soon as we had public schools, they didn't have to be responsible anymore. All I do is pay my taxes, and I can walk away and
Put the
forget
kids
it.
on the bus in the morning.
Yeah,
And
it's on autopilot. I don't have to worry about it. Now they get 2 or 3 meals a day. They get meals through the summer. They get whatever pretty quick. You don't even have to raise your own kids. You don't have to be responsible for anything. When you cede responsibility, you cede liberty.
yes,
And that's why we have a bunch of kids now that are being brainwashed, because we're not actively involved. We're not responsible for it. We don't really understand what it costs, or what's involved in educating. How many parents have actually educated enough to be able to analyze a sentence like "teaching was the hardest thing I ever did in my life"?
not that many.
Yeah, we've not done it. We leave that to the quote unquote professionals, and we just trust them. We do the same thing with preachers, rather than obey the Great Commission that Christ gave us as individuals. We hired the preacher to do that. Make him do it.
Right.
And that's what we've done. We've gotten so specialized in life that we only know how to do the thing we do, and we push everything else on something else for a fee.
Yeah, and
That's a cultural issue.
And one of the reasons that I find our current setup so, I mean, offensive is kind of a strong word, but why I'm opposed to all of it is if you take your kids out of the public school system, that is, you're teaching them at home. You're the one buying the books. You're the one that's taking the time to do it. You're still paying taxes. I mean, you still have to pay for the public school system. And so I don't understand why we can't set up some sort of system to where, hey, if you don't want your kids in the public school, maybe there's that 12 mills you don't have to pay, or whatever it is. I mean, 12 is probably a high number.
Yeah. When they talk about ESAs, basically what we're doing is taking tax money and funneling it back to the parents.
Yeah.
And to me, the idea would be don't collect it in the first place.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know how you get. I don't know how.
Yeah.
You set that
How
up.
do we get from A to B at this point? It's pretty much a pipe dream, and we've gone down that road. No easy answers, but at some point things get bad enough that a lot of parents look at it and say, I can't tolerate this anymore. And that's what my wife does for a living. She meets with parents who are fed up with education as it is, and shows them another way, something that we practiced in my household for 25 years. And I do say, if I say so myself, our kids are all doing very well in life in various forms. And there is another way.
Well, Ken, for, oh man, I don't know, the last 6 months, 5 months, it's been a long time. Once a week, I've been teaching, holding a debate class for some high school, homeschool kids. And I am constantly amazed at how much reading they do, and, how much research over and above what you would find for the average, everyday high school
They're
kid.
self-motivated.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you tell them where you want them to go, and they'll go there.
Yeah, it's like I say, I'm amazed at the self-motivation. But like you say, Ken, the way our public school system is set up, it's you send your kids to Caesar, and then later we're surprised when they come out as Romans. So on this whole, education savings account bit, here's what he had to say. Quote, "While I support innovative ideas, I'm not necessarily sure that the Steamboat Scholarship Program meets the constitutional language that we have in the state of Wyoming. So if the court does decide that it is constitutional, well then, as a state superintendent, I'll make sure that it's implemented with integrity and with the appropriate infrastructure." That's another one of those kind of waffling comments. Our has been in the public school system for, a really long time. Even when he's working for the governor, he's still advocating on behalf of the public school system. And so, of course, he's not going to say, well, our public school system is a disaster and we need to completely overhaul it. And what you have here is, I think, two entirely opposed positions. Now, I'm not saying that Tom Kelly is, completely opposed to the public school system, but he has a different way of looking at it. Tom is kind of libertarian minded.
Yeah, but you could not possibly say he's completely opposed to it because his kids are involved with it.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So, yeah.
But I think that their approach would be two different things. Tom Kelly's approach would probably be, hey, the best place to educate your kids is not in the public school system. I've often heard him say that PhD only stands for piled higher and deeper. But I think you've got two different viewpoints here. The next question in the piece, school choice, it's very much the same one, but this is a catchphrase that the media uses. Should you be able to send your kids to private school? Here's what Tom Kelly said. As far as how districts want to structure their school choice programs, that goes back to my original point that that's for the local communities to figure out. That's for the local school boards and parents. That's not for the state to tell Natrona or to tell the people in Sundance how they're going to structure their school choice programs. However, he said he would support the school choice between districts. Would I allow more freedom to attend different districts if people wanted to? Absolutely. Now, as you can imagine, here's what ours says. In fact, I think Wyoming's public school system is the strongest in the nation. And this is where I was getting to with this piece. And we just need to be careful in Wyoming, in my opinion, when we think about it, alternative or innovative school methods, more gobbledygook. But it's that first part of the sentence that we should focus on with him. I think Wyoming's public school system is the strongest in the nation. Really? Why is it that half the kids can't read?
Well, it may be the strongest in the nation.
The cream of the
So
crop?
now you're the cream of the crop. Yeah. I voted against the ESAs.
Oh yeah, let's talk about
and
that.
a lot of people were a little upset with that. But I voted against it for two reasons. Number one, I believe it is unconstitutional. But coming up to the last vote, I was voting for it because I was trying to get it changed. Then when they added preschool to it. That's okay. Now it's a bridge too far. I can't go there, and I voted against it. And I hope it gets struck down in the courts as unconstitutional. For one, it would vindicate my interpretation of the thing.
Right.
And
It's fun
for
to be
two,
right.
And for two, if they do that, then you apply that same logic, that same argument to economic development, and now I get what I want there. And that thrills me because I don't think you should take money away from the public and then pick winners and losers.
Nope.
And I don't think you should decide how that money should be spent. That should be done at the local level and et cetera, et cetera. There are all kinds of arguments there. But I would love to see this all taken away. One other thing that was interesting was in order to bring the Wyoming Business Council into existence in, I think, 1986 or 1987, there had to be an initiative given to the people to change the Constitution.
Yep.
And the way that new segment reads is that word notwithstanding.
Mhm.
Notwithstanding all the other parts of the Constitution that say this is not legal, we're going to do it here anyway, is
Right.
essentially what it says. I would love to see that either repealed or extended toward ESAs. Obviously, I'd rather see it repealed because it's safer. But if we're going to have that exception here, let's have that exception there where I think it matters even more.
Well, and this is just another case of, I think, of not paying attention to the Constitution. I started this whole segment saying that you can't give money to anybody that's not under the direct control of the state. And I don't remember which passage in the Constitution
Yeah,
it
but
is.
it doesn't matter anymore because we've already violated that 6 ways from Sunday, and that's the problem.
Well, we don't pay attention to those documents anymore, Ken.
That's the problem.
They're just dusty, crusty old documents.
so
that are
let's
in a
have a
museum.
constitutional convention and let's
not do
change it
that.
and then not pay attention to that one either.
Yeah, I don't think that's a good
Yeah.
idea either. All right, state education funding. Let's hear. Kelly said the new funding formula we have, I believe, is an improvement. One of the big criticisms is what we call the instructional silo. But I supported that because the primary focus of our education system should be educating kids, and the foundation of that are excellent educators. So if the money we put aside for recruiting and retaining educators gets spent elsewhere, it undermines the entire system. Now let's find out what, let's see here. Where is ours? Let's see here. Ours position on the issue is that the state should spend as much money on education as it can. Quote, I think education is the best economic development plan, Ours said. It's the best way to equip our kids to be in charge of their own destiny, to be positive contributors to society. Like education is just more gobbledygook. He doesn't really answer the question.
Well, that's another meaningless, stupid phrase. Spend as much as you can. Well, everybody knows you can overspend.
Yes.
You know, what are you getting? What's the bang for the buck? What's the return on the investment? My granddad when he gave me lessons on how to spend your money. He'd get out the Sears catalog and he'd say, look, every product has 3 layers. There's a cheap one. There's an intermediate one that'll probably do everything you need it to do, and then there's a really expensive one where you're paying too much for bells and whistles you don't need.
Right.
He said, always buy the middle one. I think in large part he was right. And when you look at this, you don't spend everything you possibly can on education. Look where that's gotten us.
Well, and it's the classic government trap in that you just throw money at a problem and assume that it's fixed. More money, more money, more money. That will fix the problem. Well,
and then when the problem persists, you go to the people that screwed it up in the first place. And of course, they say, I need more money and more power, or I can't fix it.
Well, the candidate that you should focus on when it comes to the superintendent position is the guy that's going to actually attack the problem. I mean, whether that's Tom Kelly, I personally think it's probably Tom Kelly, or this Our fellow. But we've got to start talking about facts. Too often when we discuss education, it's vagueness and hyperbole. We have to spend as much as we possibly can, or it's our education system is the strongest in the state. Well, what like Ken said, what do those phrases mean? What does it mean to be the strongest state in the country? Well, I mean it could mean that you are just as the same as everybody else, which I think if you look, every study that I've seen about American education is we're definitely down in the bottom half when compared to other countries. So does that mean that you're just mediocre? Words mean things. So it's another race that we've got to keep our eyes peeled on. And, I think it's important because we've got a superintendent right now that's not really doing anything. And I think this most recent controversy with the document dump. Why don't we call it document gate? It's always a gate when it's conservatives that screw up. It's never a gate when it's liberals that screw up. But I think we should probably call this one document gate. All right, let's go ahead and take our second break. And when we come back, we'll get to that Dave Simpson piece. Make sure that you subscribe and follow the Cowboy State Politics podcast. You can do that from the website, cowboystatepolitics.com, or anywhere that you get your podcasts. That way, you'll make sure that you won't miss a single episode of Cowboy State Politics. Hunting season. Right about now, you're off with all of your pals, stalking the big gigantic elk or buck mule deer that you've been thinking about all summer long. And your lovely wife is at home, probably enjoying her time without you. But soon, my friend, all of that is going to come to a screeching halt. And I want you to think about just one little thing. She's able to park her car inside the garage because all of your hunting crap is with you right now. Now, if you'd like the marital bliss to continue, I suggest you make a call to Marcos and Jesse at Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. They can build you a garage or a barn or any other type of metal structure for you to store all of your toys in so that your wife can continue parking inside the garage. And you can avoid sleeping on the couch for the next month or two. Call Morton Buildings. Their phone number is 307-674-2532. Get them to build you a metal building before it's too late. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live. It's Tuesday. I'm your host, David Iverson, Wyoming's conservative voice. To the cow pie. A piece entitled, Did Biden's Advisors Get Anything Right? And this is our pal Dave Simpson. He's like the only guy at the cow pie that I actually enjoy reading. The rest of them, I'm just looking for their most recent mistake. By the way, did you see the political cartoon that is on Facebook, Wyo Rhino Rocket, with Claire McFarland carrying the water for Dagenfelder?
That was good. I'll carry your water anywhere.
Yeah, classic. If you haven't seen it, go to Facebook and look up Wyo Rhino Rocket. There's a great cartoon on there that is Claire McFarland carrying the water for Megan Dagenfelder. Anyway, Dave Simpson writes, one must wonder if an advisor advised against opening our borders to millions of undocumented aliens. Did anyone say, now hold on just a second, what could possibly go wrong with this? On TV the other day, an interview show featured a guest whose title was, quote, senior advisor to the Biden administration. Do you suppose he put that on his resume? Now, to be honest, is that a good thing if you're the advisor to Biden? What do you suppose a senior advisor to the Biden administration did to earn his salary in such a mistake-rich environment? Were the big whopping mistakes the work product of senior advisors while the junior advisors worked their way up by weighing in on lesser, crippling, boneheaded decisions? Or could some junior advisor shoot for the moon and screw up a steel ball with a rubber hammer so utterly that he or she could ascend to senior advisor status? As I watched this guy, blonde hair, kind of doughy, mid-30s, no doubt educated somewhere with ivy on the walls, I tried to think of a time I paid someone half my age for wise advice. Now, I'm not talking about doctors here. They're an exception. All my doctors look like they got out of junior high. I have The subject of paid consultants came up. He pointed to a nasty rash on his ankle and said, quote, consultants are about as useful as that rash on my leg. Case closed. One must wonder if an advisor advised against opening our borders to millions. Yes, millions. 12 million, perhaps 20 million. Donald Trump says even more of undocumented aliens. Did anyone say, now hold on just a second, what could possibly go wrong with this? Was our senior policy advisor on the job the day that famously stupid call was made, condemning our country to years of crimes that could have been avoided had the Biden administration shown some good sense? I think so. I've heard a dumb argument made that, by percentage, illegal aliens commit fewer crimes than the rest of us. Now, let's be clear. Letting thousands of criminally minded aliens into our country was a layer of crime we didn't need. We didn't have to add other countries' criminals to the ranks of our homegrown, prison-bound reprobates. Now, here's the question. How could you possibly say that illegal immigrants commit less crimes than your average everyday American? Because the very first thing they did when they approached this country was commit a crime. And so every day that they're in the country is another layer to the crime that they originally committed by entering the country. So how could you possibly say that they commit less crime?
No living person is a crime unless maybe they're a fetus.
Oh, yes,
Just wondering.
yes. Yeah. Well, the truth is this whole immigration discussion, and all you have to do is go spend about 15 minutes on Twitter or Facebook and just search for like illegal immigration or immigration, and you'll find this ridiculous debate where words don't mean anything, and you'll see all sorts of phrases to say that no person is illegal. Everybody should be able to come here. No, it's not true. If you are in the country and you don't have permission to be there, you are, by definition, an illegal immigrant. If you're in somebody's house and you don't have permission to be there, you are, by definition, a burglar. It doesn't matter if you steal something. It means that you entered the house, what do they call it, breaking and entering? I mean, that is a crime. If you break and enter the country, that's a crime too.
If the door's standing wide open and you just walk in, it's still a crime.
It's still a crime. Right now in Wyoming, you're probably going to get shot when you walk through the threshold. And perhaps that's the way that we should look at this thing. That if you enter the country illegally, perhaps you should be shot at the border. I mean, it's no different than walking into your house.
You started that segment, and I'm kind of swerving things a little bit, but you started that segment by talking about presidential advisors.
Yes.
There's a film out there, and yes, it does involve Shirley MacLaine, but the story is still fantastic. And there it is.
Being there.
It is called Being There, and Chauncey Gardner is played by Peter Sellers. And if you haven't seen it, I highly suggest you see it. And think about that idea of who a president selects as his advisors.
Well, yeah. I mean, what are the qualifications?
This is a great laugh.
I mean, we've all seen Karine Jean-Pierre, the press secretary. She obviously doesn't have any qualifications for that job. And so it makes you wonder, I mean, what did your resume have to say to get into the Biden administration? I mean, none of them seem to be educated on foreign policy or what works and obviously what doesn't work. So what exactly did you have to have credentials in?
The left is built on two aspects that I can tell, and one is feelings and one is intentions. I feel like things ought to be this way, and I really want it to be this way.
I hate that phrase.
Yeah.
God, I hate that phrase.
And that's okay. I'm glad you feel that way, but reality is something different. And I think a lot of times the right and the left, well, a lot of times neither side is particularly based in reality. But more often than not, if one of them's going to get it right, it's going to be the right. The left is all about how I feel about something or what my desires are. It has nothing to do with what is.
Well, how many people do you run into, Ken, that you ask them a question?
Two.
And the answer that they give you is, I feel that we should do it this way. No, you don't feel that we should do something that way. You think we should. And perhaps that's the issue. That is that we don't think anymore.
How do you feel?
We just feel. It's the dumbest phrase I think I've ever heard. One of them, I feel that we should go to lunch at Taco John's today.
Well,
No,
you might be feeling some pain in your tummy.
maybe, but I for the life of me, I don't know where we stopped thinking and started feeling. When we stopped dealing with facts and focused on feelings. And all you have to do is watch any of the debates on C-SPAN or on the news when they have a clip. Hardly any of our elected officials are actually doing anything that's based in reality. It's all feelings and desires, like Ken said. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Let me give you an example here. So over the weekend, the grand niece of General Soleimani, the guy that Trump killed, the Iranian general that Trump killed in his first term, well, she was arrested in Los Angeles. And this is a piece off of Breitbart. So the title is...
Yeah, the first question is, what was somebody like that doing in L.A.?
Well, I can show you. Hold on just a second.
It's just, are you kidding me? Here is close family of one of our worst enemies.
Yes.
I can't show that.
Oh, why not?
Well, I can understand why she doesn't dress that way.
It's on the front of the New York Post.
That doesn't mean it right. That doesn't. make
All
it
right, show. See, there you go. So that is what the grandniece of General Soleimani was doing in L.A. Okay, we've had enough of that. So she's living the high life in L.A. And,
That's the high life
well, I mean, you see from the picture. I mean,
compared to where she's been.
well, compared to where she's been, that is the high life. And actually, I got into a debate on social media over the weekend that the question was, why is this Iranian woman in the United States, first dressing like that, or living the high life, behaving like that, while all of her countrywomen are back in Iran and they can't show any skin, and they'll probably be arrested if they show too much around their eyes. And so, why the double standard? And the response I got was, well, life here is no different than it is in Iran. I beg to differ just a little bit. So,
How much time have you spent living in Iran,
Yes.
buddy?
yeah, well, I mean, it's the same thing of all these LGBTQZXPWS people that are in favor of Iran. Maybe they should go spend a weekend over there.
Buy them a ticket.
Yeah, a one-way ticket. Of course, I mean, it doesn't really matter what ticket because they're not going to be coming back.
Send them a little parachute with them so they can parachute off the building when they get pushed.
Oh, God. Well, no, I mean, that's funny. I mean, you made a joke of it, but that's actually what happens. If you step out, if you're a woman or you're of any minority, really, and you step out of line in the least in Iran, you're probably going to get a bullet. So here's what the Breitbart piece says. Quote, Iranian terror mastermind General Soleimani's niece, who showcased her lavish Los Angeles lifestyle on social media while bashing the U.S. as the Great Satan, was arrested by federal authorities over the weekend and will be removed from the U.S. with no chance of ever returning. Arrested alongside Soleimani's niece was Hamideh Soleimani Afshar. And subjected to the removal order was her 25-year-old daughter. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that name. Announcement of the federal action was made Saturday by the U.S. State Department and Department of Homeland Security, which dispatched immigration and customs enforcement agents to make the arrests in and around Los Angeles. Quote, while living in the U.S., Ashtar promoted the Iranian regime propaganda, celebrated attacks against American soldiers and military facilities in the Middle East, praised the new Iranian supreme leader, denounced America as the Great Satan, and voiced her unflinching support for the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, a designated terror organization. She also pushed this propaganda for Iran's terrorist regime while employing a lavish lifestyle in Los Angeles, as attested to by her frequent posting on her recently deleted Instagram account with the picture that I showed you. The Trump administration will not allow our country to become a home for foreign nationals who support anti-American terrorists, Marco Rubio said. And so the question is, why do we allow people like this into our country that have no allegiance to our country whatsoever? They support a radical Islamist regime. They make no attempt to become a citizen. Not that not that the grandniece of General Soleimani would be allowed to have. Maybe allowed is the wrong word, but that she would even pass a citizenship test. But why do we do that? And it goes back to the original point I was making with the Dave Simpson piece, that we have no borders, that everybody should be allowed here. Well, that's just not true. Like my adopted grandfather, when he came over here, I've got a copy of the citizenship test that he took. Ken, you and I sitting here, we probably couldn't pass it. It doesn't take that much effort to become a United States citizen. Now, it takes time. You have to study. But if it's something that you want to do, that you want to be a citizen, well, then that's great. Come to our country, but don't come here illegally. And certainly while you're here, don't advocate for terrorists. And it's just some of the things that we do as a country just blow my mind.
How many of the people that advocate for open borders have a lock on their front door?
Probably all of them.
How many of them live in gated communities, for that matter?
Nancy Pelosi does.
Yeah, and you look at it, and there was an example with what's the island out there that everybody lives on. You got to let
Guam?
no
Haiti. Cuba.
you're thinking the wrong direction. Um, all the rich people live there. Anyway, it doesn't.
Martha's Vineyard.
Martha's Vineyard, yes. Point being, it was okay that we have to, everybody, all the commoners have to allow anybody to move into their neighborhoods, and the diversity is good. But by God, they start filtering into their neighborhood. We've got to do something about this.
Yeah, that's the most incredible display of hypocrisy in this entire immigration debate. The very people that would go on CNN or PMSNBC, that is now Ms. Now, and shout that we have to have open borders, are the very people that, when they had the chance to welcome all of these great illegal immigrants into their community, they called the National Guard, and they were removed the next day. But see, it's all rhetoric, and it's not, fundamentally held beliefs. And it's okay for you to host illegal immigrants in your town, but when they get shipped off to Martha's Vineyard or anywhere else, well, then there's a problem. While we're talking about Iran, and I should warn you that this next video that I'm going to show you, it does have some language in it. Now, granted, it is from the president, but there is some language in it that I did not have time to bleep out. But it's a perfect example of the frustration that a lot of these policies create. First, to the piece from Breitbart, Trump. The Iranian regime are BS artists, and they have been BSing the U.S. presidents for 5 decades. President Donald Trump said Monday that BS artists, and he used the word, in the Iranian regime have been BSing other American presidents for nearly 5 decades. Trump's comments came during his third White House press briefing of 2026 in response to a question from CNN, the communist news network, on whether or not reopening the Strait of Hormuz is a top priority in the potential deal to end the war. And here was the question: are you willing to make a deal that does not include reopening the Strait of Hormuz, or is that now our top priority? Ken, go ahead and play that video. And again, if you're at work, you might want to bleep this out, or if you have kids in the room, chase them out. But here we go.
That's one thing that's a little different than other things. We can bomb the hell out of them. We can knock them out for a little. But to close the strait, all you need is one terrorist that somehow has a truck loaded with, because you can carry them in trucks, large trucks, a water mine, drop them in the water, and now you tell people that own ships that cost $1 billion to don't worry about the mine. You can do that even just by saying we put mines in the water. So it's not like the rest. We can knock out their military. We already have. We've knocked out their Navy. We've knocked out their Air Force completely. We've knocked out 158 ships in 3 days. We've knocked out even their mine droppers. They don't have any mine droppers anymore, but they put them on other boats, and they could drop them. I'm not even sure they have any mines there, by the way. I'm not sure. I'm personally, they say there might be 8. I don't know. I think there might be none, because they're very good bullshit artists. That's why for 47 years they've been bullshitting other presidents, and they haven't done the job. And people are living in hell. You live in that country, they're living in hell.
Okay, so 2 points here. First, the liberal media went absolutely bat crap crazy over the president swearing, and he's been doing that. I mean, you can see his frustration in a lot of the TV interviews that he's had, and that one too. But you can see the frustration that, look, we've completely bombed the crap out of a country, and anybody who was reasonable would have said, okay, we've had enough. Can we make a deal? Some sort of ceasefire, but not the Iranians. They continue to say, no, we're not going to open the Strait of Hormuz, and we're not going to come to any sort of arrangement to end the war. And part of it, almost all of it goes to their ideology. I mean, they are a radical Islamist regime, and they do think that creating chaos is, and there's, you've got to read into, read the history of, since 1979, what the Iranians have done. I mean, none of it has really been it's been to the benefit of the people at the top, but they really don't give a crap about any of their citizens. I mean, it's, my advice is make them say uncle. That's what I think we ought to do. All right, so this should come as no shock to you. Now, Ken, if you're a Democrat, just riddle me this, riddle me that. if you are a Democrat and you want to, regain power, what's your first thing that you would do?
You always ask me questions like this with the foundation that I can't relate to.
Well, I know. I mean, it's a big giant.
What's the
It's a big
first
giant
thing?
trap.
What's the first thing I would do?
You're a Democrat politician. What would you do? Switch parties and become a Republican?
Yeah, I'd have one of those road bright light. I saw a bright light on the road, changing around. I don't know what you're getting at.
Well, I mean,
I'm sorry, you're going to have to fill this one in
now,
yourself.
see, you want the answers first before you answer the question, but
Well,
it's a big giant trap. I realize
yeah, I
this.
know, and I don't like traps. I drove through a minefield once.
This is definitely one of those.
And I can smell them.
Yeah, well, so, all of the reasonable things that you would think a Democrat politician would do. I mean, we've got a couple of them that have announced that they're running for office in the state. And if you're, Wyoming has elected several Democrat governors, so it's not unheard of that you win an election. But national Democrats are not, they're not focusing on the things that might actually get them elected. Instead, they've decided it's a good time to impeach Donald Trump for a third time. And I quote, Free Speech for People, that's another Democrat group, said in a press release Monday that a new national poll found that the majority of likely 2026 voters nationwide support impeaching Donald Trump. Now let me read that again for you. Free Speech for People said in a press release Monday that a new national poll found, quote, a majority of likely 2026 voters nationwide support impeaching Donald Trump, which the group called, quote, an extraordinary and unprecedented level of support so early in a presidential term. Now, do you suppose that perhaps, maybe, the poll was a little bit weighted, that it was a little bit slanted? Do you suppose that would be the case?
Well, I doubt they polled a lot of people in Wyoming, but
yeah, well, I don't think they polled any Republicans. The poll, which was conducted by Lake Research Partners from March 26th to March 30th among 800 likely 2026 general election voters, found that 52% support impeaching Donald Trump, while 40% oppose it. 46% said they strongly support impeachment, compared to with 37% who strongly oppose it, while 8% said they are unsure and have no opinion. Free Speech for People said that, quote, support for impeachment spans party lines, pointing to 84% among Democrats, with 8% opposed. Among independents, 55% support impeachment and 34% oppose it. And among Republicans, 81% support it, with the rest of them opposing it. So clearly, we should impeach the president because that seems popular, according to one left-wing group. The problem with this is the Constitution doesn't say that you can impeach a president based on popular opinion or slanted unpopular or whatever opinion. It says for high crimes and misdemeanors. It doesn't say because some group somewhere thinks that that's a popular idea. But this goes back to our whole discussion about feelings. That it's not based on fact, that we don't argue our political positions from from facts anymore. Nope, it's all about feelings. Now, the memo released by Lake Research Partners notes that the survey was conducted through live telephone and text to online interviews and weighted by gender, age, region, race, educational attainment, and partisanship to reflect likely 2026 voters nationwide. The margin of error, and this is to me, and of course I'm a political wonk on this stuff, the margin of error was only 3.5 percentage points. You believe that one? In a poll that says the majority of Americans said we should impeach Donald Trump, the margin of error is only 3.5%. It's absolutely ridiculous, but you see stuff like this all of the time in the national media.
that's just good evidence of the idea that we don't do polls to see what people think. We do polls to try to persuade them to think the way we want them to.
Yeah, and that's the problem with a lot of polling. And, I want to say it was like 2 months ago, maybe a month ago. I don't get polls. I don't even get mailers addressed to me. I wonder why. But the lovely Christine got poll after poll after poll, and we had so much fun just looking at the questions because the result of your poll depends largely upon how the question is asked. A good example of that is the Wyoming Business Council poll, where one answer said, they'd ask you an economic question, and only one of the answers said things are going good. The other four were all negative. So, of course, you're going to get the result that you want. I guess since one left-wing group says that we should impeach the president, I guess, that's what they're going to base policy on. To the Cody Enterprise, in a piece entitled "The Freedom Caucus is Wyoming," and this brought to my attention by Agent 29, and this is a guest column written in the Cody Enterprise, which is owned, by the way, that paper is owned by the same people that own County 17 News. So it's not really the Cody paper, it's really the Gillette paper. And as it relates to that, most of the papers in Wyoming are owned by a larger conglomerate. Like most of the papers along the southern half of Wyoming are owned by Stevenson newspapers. Rob Hicks in Buffalo owns several different papers in the state, the Buffalo Bull Crap and several others. So when you see an opinion piece or frankly any article in whether the Powell Tribune or the Cody Enterprise or the Sheridan Press might be an exception to that, or the Buffalo Bull Crap, or any of them really, keep in mind that it's coming from a very, very small group of people.
Yeah, but because they're all relatively small themselves, they're hungry for content, and so they will get an article from virtually anywhere and print it without any fact-checking or any change.
Yeah.
I mean, you see, in the Sheridan Press, you see all the time articles that were printed in other papers across the state, and
most of the time it's your favorite news outlet, Wild Pile.
yeah, I wouldn't even say most of the time, but yeah, often.
Often.
Yeah.
And you see whenever you see a line that says via the Wyoming News Exchange, what that is basically a drop box that most media outlets use in the state, and it's just all sorts of different articles that they drop in there. And you can, if you're part of this Wyoming News Exchange, well, you can just grab one and put it in your paper. Because as is, I think this morning's edition of the program is a good example of that. It was pretty hard finding stuff to talk about this morning. And, you have days where there's lots of news and days where there's none, or, very little, and you got to focus on national issues. So anyway, back to the piece that was printed in the Cody Enterprise. And this is an op-ed. And I quote, Hillary Clinton's mentor, Saul Alinsky, published Rules for Radicals in 1971. It provided a series of rules to guide the left's grassroots efforts against their opponents. Rule 12 involved isolating a target with disinformation. Quote, pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. That sounds like what the guest editorial attempted to do. Target the Freedom Caucus, polarize it within our community. Don't fall for the spin and information that was presented, especially when someone else tries to define what a, quote, true Wyomingite is for you. Like the April 2025 editorial also attempted to do, branding people as counterfeit conservatives. Now, if you want to know the facts, the truth about the Wyoming Freedom Caucus, check out their website, talk to their members, instead of having someone tell you incorrectly what it is and what it isn't. And then in the piece, it lists the Wyoming Freedom Caucus website, which is wyfreedomcaucus.com. Now, over the weekend, there was another piece published in the, where was it? It was in the Pravda on the Platte, of course. And it was a discussion of how Eric Barlow had an event in Cody. And in the piece, Barlow claims that he is a, quote, Wyoming conservative. Now, there are a lot of these monikers, names that they're using to call themselves. And it's, and really what it is the old guard redcoat Republicans. I mean, it's the people who used to be Democrats that registered as Republicans so that they could get elected.
They're boogers.
I don't like that word.
Big government Republicans.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Well, if Barlow is a Wyoming conservative,
that's what he says.
What am I then?
Well, that's a good question. I mean, because we have all of these other names floating around. And
But,
this,
they typically attack the Freedom Caucus, and they say, well, you guys aren't from around here. You come in here with all these national ideas and this big dark money.
yeah.
And everything they say about that is not true about me.
Mm-hmm. None of it.
Or several others that
Well,
are.
and a lot of them.
Yeah.
Now, to be very fair, many of the people that make these same sorts of claims are not from Wyoming either. The guy that coined the term Wyoming caucus, Poisonberry Craigo, he's not from Wyoming either. He's from South Dakota. And there's a long list of these other folks who really are, liberal, used to be Democrats, now registered as Republican people that aren't from Wyoming either.
And the point is still true. It doesn't really make a difference where you're from. It depends on where you stand. And my problem is they make this a smoke screen. It's what's the expression that I want? They put up this fake ideal
persona, whatever.
Yeah, and there's a word for the argument. Anyway,
straw man.
Yeah, it's a straw man. And
red herring.
Yeah, this is something that really never should be an issue. Really isn't, but they create it as one, and it's not even true or accurate for a lot of us.
No.
So it's all just a smokescreen BS straw man. And it is so frustrating when you're actually trying to have some sort of a debate or a discussion on the actual issues and the relative merits of the same. You can't do that anymore. And of course, they're not going to submit to it because they'll lose horribly.
Well, and every time I interview somebody, one of these people running for office, there's always a question in there, something to the effect of, okay, you used the word conservative. What does that word mean? And then it depending on the answer, I mean, it's almost always, well, I believe in small government and, fiscal responsibility, and I love my guns, and abortion is wrong. I mean, that's almost always, sometimes they leave the abortion question off, but that's almost always the question or the answer to it. And then my response is, okay, well, let's talk about some of the things that you voted on to where that's probably not the case, and, have an honest discussion. But you see, we don't live in a world of I want to say facts, but what I mean is we don't live in a world where words mean things anymore. You can call yourself whatever you want, and then somehow we're all supposed to believe that that's the truth. And so a lot of these big government types, boogers, as Ken calls them, really all they are is Democrats that wanted to get elected, and so they switched parties.
Well, look at Gail's recent piece.
Oh, yeah, we got something for her.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what she says. If you want to win an election, you can't be who you are. You got to be somebody else.
Yeah.
That's really what she's saying.
Yeah, I've actually been in a courthouse and listened to the clerk tell somebody registering to vote, now you want to register as a Republican because if you don't, you're not going to be able to vote in the primary. Excuse me? I mean, it is the Republican primary. But again, words don't really mean anything anymore when you have folks running around calling themselves Wyoming conservatives or, there's a whole list of them. So let's continue with the piece here. As for the Freedom Caucus being somehow un-Wyoming, the Freedom Caucus was founded in 2015 to advocate for limited government and lower spending, and often acts as a voting bloc to promote legislation. Wyoming Senator Cynthia Lummis, who was born in Laramie County, was a founding member of it when she was in the House of Representatives. Many of its members were born and raised in Wyoming. For example, Jeremy Haraldson, Scott Heiner, Agent 29. How long has your family been in Wyoming?
Settled here in 1878.
Yeah, I was going to say probably around the same amount as my family.
Yeah, there weren't many white folk out here. There were some.
There weren't a lot of folks out here at all at that time. Well, there were, but...
Well, there weren't a lot.
Okay, so but here's the question, and this one, and you alluded to it earlier. What does that matter where somebody was from at all?
It matters where you stand.
Well, yeah, that's the point I'm driving at.
Yeah.
That we're led to believe that if somebody in Minnesota came up with the cure for cancer, we should reject it because we don't have a Wyoming cure for cancer. The argument you often hear on the floor is Wyoming solutions for Wyoming problems. This is not a Wyoming solution for that. We got to have our own solution for it. Well, that's ridiculous.
Then watch any committee, and as soon as something is posed, a question or whatever, well, what do other states do?
Exactly. What are they doing in Illinois?
It's such a ridiculous nothing argument, but but it's particularly irritating to me because, like you mentioned with Crago, and he certainly couldn't use that on me.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, and there's a lot of them, like Ken Clouston. He wasn't born here.
Yeah.
Let's see, Lloyd Larson. I don't think he was born here. I mean, there's a long list, and all you have to do is go to Wild Ledge, and a lot of them have removed that off of their bio if you pay attention to it. Continuing here. Let's see here, and those members who chose Wyoming as home, and see that's the part that I'm interested in right there. Those who chose Wyoming as home, like generations before did when they settled here, have what matters in their hearts and minds with regard to values, belief in limited government, freedom, and a deep concern for the neighbors. The Freedom Caucus is Wyoming. Okay, so I am more interested in why somebody moved here to begin with, because Wyoming is not really, I mean, weather-wise, I mean, it's not like we live in the Sun Belt. The weather here is not all that hospitable. Even when it's 85 degrees outside, most of the time the wind is blowing 40 miles an hour.
well, it goes from 30 below to 110 in no time. It is. I think inhospitable is interesting. Why does somebody move here? My great grandfather came here when he was about 14. He was trailing cattle from Texas to Montana. And he said, first time I rode through Wyoming, I wore the toes off my boots, and I wanted a piece. He wanted to raise some cattle.
Mm-hmm.
He saw unparalleled prairie grasses, and that was his place. Interestingly enough, at one point he owned what is now, and I think it was even then, a little town of Hazleton. It was a stage stop up on top.
It's right
of
above
the
our
Big
cabin.
Mountain. And I was going to say, your family's been in Wyoming quite a
time.
while itself, and in fact, your grandmother owned the same property.
Yeah. My
So something we
she's
share
actually
in
my
common.
great aunt.
Okay.
She passed away, but at one time she was the largest landowner in Johnson County, including Hazleton.
Does that mean she owned more land, or she was a big person that owned
It
land?
means she owned a lot of land.
Okay.
Yeah, a very very skinny person.
Ambiguity.
Yeah, well, words mean things. But I am way more interested in why people move here as to where they're from originally. Now, I want to know who a person is, and if you're willing to move to a place that has some crazy weather and winters that sometimes will freeze your toes off when you step outside, there's got to be a reason why you move here. And I think that most people move here. I say most because not all, but most people move here to be left alone, to where you can move to a place that doesn't have, a lot of government intrusion, though, when you start digging
More
into
than we
it.
should.
We have way more than we should, and where you can pretty much do what you want. And, that is not the attitude of a lot of big government types that actually did move here to change things. And if you listen to the debate on the floor, you can see it black and white. I mean, it is not hard at all. But, the point here, Ken, and we're going to take a call here in just a second. And, well, you know what? Let's go to the break. And when we come back, we'll go ahead and take a call. Are you tired of all the meaningless political drivel floating around right now? Endless commentary that really doesn't have anything backing it up? Do you long for the days of true investigative journalism coming from an authoritative source who really doesn't care how popular and apparently good-looking a politician is? Fortunately for you, that's what I do on Cowboy State Politics. New episodes are published every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday, and you can get them anywhere that you get your podcasts. iHeartRadio, iTunes, TuneIn, really any of them will work. But the easiest way is just to go to the website, cowboystatepolitics.com. There, you can find all of the shows, as well as any of the articles I might bring up during the course of the program. Cowboy State Politics Live, the program you're listening to right now, is broadcast every Tuesday through Friday, beginning at 8 a.m. Pay attention to all of that other block-headed nonsense if you want. Just make sure that you don't miss an episode of Cowboy State Politics. And now, back to our program. Welcome back to the program, Cowboy State Politics Live on a Tuesday. I'm David Iverson. Sometimes the call screening thing is a little bit temperamental, and so if you tried to call in, try it again. Call back, and we'll see what's on your mind. If you want to be part of the program, the phone number is 307-374-8989. 307-374-8989. Go ahead and give me a call. Anything that's on your mind. And if you tried to call and something happened, try it again.
I just wanted to clarify, the call screener is software.
Yeah.
I am not the call screener, so don't be cussing me.
Actually, it's a pretty ingenious system. So you call in, and it's going to ask you to tell me who you are and what you want to talk about, and it's remarkably accurate. It's one of those fun AI things. So we've all been watching with I don't know what you want to call it, irritation perhaps on what's going on in the Big Apple. There's a piece on Fox News, and okay, so nobody should be surprised that this is happening, because we were all treated with all sorts of sound bites like this. Nope, did we get it? Nope, we didn't get that, did we? Hold on here, let me just see. We did some switching around in the studio, so some things are still being worked out. So let's try this again. Here we go. From my computer. There we go.
This new age will be defined by a competence and a compassion that have too long been placed at odds with one another. We will prove that there is no problem too large for government to solve and no concern too small for it to care about.
Oh, isn't that just great, Ken? No problem too big for government to solve and no problem too small for government to care about.
That ought to chill you to the bone.
It should.
That's just...
Yeah. So that one's good. Let's see here. What is another one? Yeah. How about this one?
But then there are also other issues that we firmly believe in, whether it's BDS, right, or whether it is the end goal of seizing the means of production.
Yeah.
Where we do not have the same level of support at this very moment. And what I want to say is that it is critical that in the way that we organize, the way that we set up our work and our priorities, that we do not leave any one issue for the other.
Yeah. So we have to seize the means of production. One more, just so we're on this, so we remember who this guy actually is, except, aside from him being the mayor of New York.
We will draw this city closer together. We will replace the frigidity of rugged individualism with the warmth of collectivism.
Wow.
Our campaign demonstrated that the people of New York yearn for solidarity, then let this government foster it.
We're going to replace the rigidity of self-reliance with the warmth of collectivism. I mean, nobody should have any illusion whatsoever as to who Zoran Mamdani is. Well, there's a piece in Fox News, and it's entitled, Mamdani Unveils New Racial Equity Plan for a More Equitable Future that prompts quick DOJ pushback. And I quote, New York City Mayor Zoran Mamdani released his preliminary citywide racial equity plan on Monday, which quickly prompted pushback from conservatives online and skepticism from President Donald Trump's Justice Department, with one top official saying she will, quote, review the move. Mamdani's office explained in a press release that the preliminary report, which the mayor had promised to release within 100 days of his office, shows racial disparities in areas like housing, education, and income. Income probably being the one he's focusing on. And the new plan aims to, quote, establish a new framework for how New York City measures affordability, understands inequity, and plans for a more equitable future. Now, again, this is another place where we really need some definitions as to what all of those words mean, because I think I'd definitely be willing to bet that it doesn't mean what you think it means. The true cost of living measure offers and this is what Mamdani's press release says, offers an honest account of what it actually costs to live in this city and who is being left behind. It shows that this is not a crisis affecting a small minority of New Yorkers. It is a crisis touching the vast majority of our city, in every borough and in every neighborhood. Now, Ken, if you can't afford to live in a place, what is the first thing that you should probably do?
Not live there.
Not live there.
I was thinking of Jackson.
Well, okay. So that's a great example. Jackson is a very expensive place to live. Frankly, it's a pretty expensive place to visit. And if you can't afford it, well, then maybe you should move to somewhere else. All right. So let's go ahead and try to take that call. And let's see here. So we've got Neil on the line. Neil, welcome to the program. What's on your mind, my friend?
Hey, good morning. How are you doing?
Hey, we're doing pretty good here. How about yourself?
Good. Hey, I was trying to send you an email, see if I have the right information. I'm trying to announce a campaign over here in HD 59.
Oh, 59. Let's see here. Whose district is that?
Mr. Reagan.
J.R. Riggins. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm all in favor of that. So I guess you just kind of announced on the show. So why don't you give us the 2 or 3 minute elevator pitch?
Neil, did we meet in Bar None?
Yeah, I was going to say hello, Ken. Yes,
Hey.
I met you recently.
Good to talk to you, sir, and welcome.
Sure, I have something wrote down here for you. It was kind of like a press release.
Yeah, I actually
I'll
got
just
your
read
press
a
release.
part
I just
for
haven't
you.
published it yet. But go ahead.
Oh, okay. So just kind of the... I'm sorry?
Oh, I was just going to say, go ahead.
Yeah, it's just like we have the campaign priorities here. Defending individual freedoms by protecting constitutional rights from government overreach. Honoring the constitutional role of government, ensuring that the government stays limited and focused on proper functions, protecting life, liberty, and property. And then reducing government waste by reviewing the unnecessary spending and streamlining bureaucracy. Supporting small businesses through reduced regulations and policies that encourage growth and entrepreneurship. And then the last point here, promoting self-reliance and opportunity to empower Wyoming families and communities to thrive without unnecessary government interference.
All right. Well, it all sounds good to me, Neil. Why don't you tell my audience a little bit about yourself? Who is Neil?
Yeah, so I pretty much been a commercial truck driver for 15 years and own a small business here in Casper for over a decade. So that's kind of a little bit about me.
All right. So why did you choose to run for office? I mean, what was the impetus behind you deciding to do this?
Just seeing some things like what the state is doing, though it's just not the proper role of government, like making their own stable coin.
Okay. Yeah, I'm totally against that. I don't
As
think
an example, yeah.
I think that was a boneheaded move.
Yeah, that just puts them in a position where they're competing with banks, and stay out of that. Do the things you ought to do, fix the roads, those sorts of things. I wanted to mention, folks that are listening, and Neil, you're going to need to give your last name here because I don't remember it, but I do remember standing there in Bar None talking to you with former Representative Jeanette
Ward.
all I could think of was Wood. Jeanette Ward. And Jeanette is running again, which is terrific because we need to get Julie gone. But Jeanette kind of gave you a CAT scan. She asked you 5 questions. Think back to those 5 questions, Neil, and maybe try to respond to those. One of the,
you're just talking about is she?
Yeah, one of the questions she asked you was, "How many guns do you have?" And your response, if I remember right, was, "I don't know," and that was perfect.
Or the other answer was not enough. Remember?
Yes, that was the other answer. Anyway, tell everybody your last name, Neil. If you're going to announce, they need to know who you are.
Yeah, it's Neil Jeske.
All right, so let's since I got you on the phone, just real quick. So you're Republican or are you Democrat? You're conservative?
Platform Republican.
Okay, all right, great. Well, I tell you what, Neil, let's set up a time where we'll have you on the program to where we can do a little bit more formal interview. I'll when I get done with the show, I'll shoot you an email and we can set that up.
Hey, I appreciate the time.
All right. So Neil Jeske, House District 59, running against J.R. Riggins. Thanks for the call, Neil. I'll be in touch.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, and that's another representative that I am super disappointed in was J.R. Riggins. Don't have any problem telling you about that. I was really offended by that. Offended's the wrong word. Irritated by that op-ed he wrote about the SAPA bill. I'm really disappointed in that one. And it's you never really knew where that guy was going to vote. I mean, he was all over the place.
He was. I understood when I first met him that he had a pretty good background as a solid conservative in Natrona County and was fairly well known.
Well, there's his first problem.
And fairly well liked.
Just kidding, Neil.
And the first year that he was there, he was ill and was unable to attend.
He had a heart attack.
Yeah, he was unable to attend until it was almost over. So I really didn't know much. So I was kind of glad when he got back there. I thought, hey, we're going to have, one more good, solid conservative vote. And not so much.
No. I haven't looked at where he's at on the on evidence-based Wyoming or any of the other ratings agencies. But just watching his votes on the floor, I'm not impressed at all. And, that's why we got to be really specific with people who are running for office. Get them, really drill down on what it is that they mean. And my favorite phrase, and I don't know if you've seen this or not, Ken, or picked up on it, but everywhere in the media, except on this program and on the Open Range Record, I think, you see the phrase, they're running as a Republican. Okay, well, what were before?
My opponent is doing that, and I love it.
Yeah, we're running
as a Republican. Well, what are you really? So I try to make sure that and I love the fact that Neil said platform Republican.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
I think that's helpful. Eventually, they'll corrupt the meaning of that, too.
Well, that's what liberals do, is they change the meaning of words.
They always do. But I'm platform Republican running for this seat.
Yeah, and there's, there are so many people that are running for office that I don't know. And, if you're listening to the program and you are running for office, the email address, like if you want to be on the show, my plan is to, and it is every election season, but my plan is to interview as many people as I possibly can and just find out who all these folks are. And what I try to do is have a, 15, 20-minute conversation with just about everybody and, find out who they are or are not, as the case may be. And so if you happen to be running for office and you want to get a hold of me, the email address is pretty easy. It's david@cowboystatepolitics.com. Go ahead and send me an email, and we'll set up an interview. I've already got a couple that I'm working on visiting with.
If we like you, you'll get some airtime. If we don't like you, you'll probably get more.
And by the way, and I often get accused of this, that, oh, you can't get a fair interview with David. I mean, he's just too conservative. That's not true at all. I've had all sorts of people on the program that I fundamentally disagree with. Mike Yen and Carly Provenza were on the show. That's how I know what it feels like to be snarled at for an hour straight. Thank you for educating me, Carly. But we also had Trey Sherwood. I thought that was a great interview. Had a wonderful time with Trey. We didn't agree on anything.
We had Josh Durrell twice.
Yeah, Josh Durrell was on here twice.
We had former President Ed Seidel.
Yep.
And I believe we can get the new guy shortly.
Yeah, well, that would be great. I'd love to find out about his background. And so, if you're running for office, go ahead and shoot me an email. The address is david@cowboystatepolitics.com. If you want to talk to Wyoming conservatives, this is the place to do it. Let's see here. We've got plenty more time. Let's go ahead and talk to Gary Brown in Cheyenne. Gary, welcome to the program. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good, David. How are you doing?
We're doing great. What's on your mind? How are things in Cheyenne?
Well, they're warm today. Really a beautiful day here in Cheyenne, and I'm getting ready to go out and talk to some constituents today. Just wanted to call in and let you know that I am not rerunning as a Republican. I am a conservative rerunning for election.
So you're not as a Republican?
I am not as a Republican. I am, in fact, a conservative Republican.
He is, folks, one of the most conservative.
Yeah, he's right up at the top of the list.
Yeah, and the fact that he got elected in Cheyenne is terrific. And pray for Gary. I tell you, though, that Gary, as good as he is, has a couple things he doesn't understand very well. Like, he just used the phrase "nice day" in Cheyenne.
Yeah, I don't know.
Okay,
what's
that's
up with
relative.
That, Gary.
That's like the best state for education in the country.
A nice day in Cheyenne.
I'm not talking about a conservative Cheyenne. I'm talking about a beautiful, sunshiny day.
But my point is, in Cheyenne, you don't even know what a beautiful day is.
Oh,
sorry.
All right, Gary.
King, it's always the same with you, my friend. We've always got to butt heads.
Yeah, well, but yet another person running for re-election, and I've also got your campaign announcement that I'll put up on the Open Range record. We got it all queued up. I just haven't hit the publish button on it yet. So we're going to do that one too. By the way, Gary, since you're on the program, I do have a bone to pick with you.
Oh, here we go again.
Here we go again. Now, for those of you who are unaware, one of my favorite representatives, favorite is kind of a strong word to use, but one of my main sources for content was Representative Bill Henderson, where he said fantastic things like this.
Oh, I think you got to stop and take a look at what you're doing here. I speak against this because it kind of reminds me of that fairy tale, Cinderella.
He actually said that on the floor. But Gary, since you have been elected, I have not had a great source of amusement from Bill Henderson, and I can't tell you how excited I am that you sent him back to his day job.
Well, I'm excited about that too, and I'm hoping that we can stay in there for at least a couple more years and see some great things get done. We've been working hard at trying to do that. Not by ourselves. We have a great group of conservatives there that I like to work with, and we don't always agree. We butt heads with each other sometimes, but that's the nature of the beast.
Now, I was told that all of you people, all of you conservative Freedom Caucus types, that you all think alike and vote alike, and you vote according to the text message you get from your DC overlords every morning. Isn't that true, Representative?
The problem is they don't seem to contact me. I've never heard from them. I guess I must be a black sheep or something.
I'm still waiting for that $30,000.
Yeah, me too. You know, I've been watching the mail for that $30,000. I haven't seen a dime.
Yeah, well, a lot of bull crap rolling around in the media. All right, Gary. Well, I will be in touch, and we'll set up a formal interview on the program. Thanks for calling in, my friend. If people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that?
Yeah, they can go ahead and email me at my legislative email site. That's Gary.Brown@WildGov.
Wildledge.gov, right?
And wildledge.gov. You're right. And then also my phone number is 307-369-3453.
All right, Gary, we'll be in touch. Thanks for calling this morning, my friend. All right, so we've got about 10 minutes left in the program, and if you want to be on the show, if you got something on your mind, go ahead and give me a call. The phone number is 307-374-8989, 307-374-8989.
I have two things for the audience.
Yeah, maybe they don't want it.
Well, they probably don't. We recently reworked a lot of how the audio is done here. And shoot us an email, give us your comments, let me know how it's sounding from where you're at. There's something we need to correct. We're trying to expand it so that we don't have to move things around ever. And
yeah.
If you're a long-time listener, you'll notice that sometimes under different circumstances we have to shuffle things. So we're trying to advance and get beyond that. So let us know if you have any issues. And then a second one is an idea that I had for a segment that is basically the truth about the AR-15. I'm interested, would you folks be interested in such a segment where we get down to the truth about how they operate, the lethality of them, that sort of thing, kind of clear up some of the myths that are out there. It would take some work to put that together, but if this is something you're interested in, please let us know. Thanks.
Sure. Well, and that's actually a pretty interesting subject, I think. Because, we're really, like any of these so-called assault weapons bans, really we should call them what they are, which is scary-looking weapons ban, or the black rifle weapons ban.
If by scary you mean they make you salivate.
Yeah, well, I mean, for liberals, that's kind of scary. That's true. But really, the AR-15, it doesn't stand for assault rifle. Never has. It stands for Armalite Rifle, which was the first company that manufactured the AR-15. And it's not just, and here's another bizarre thing. We see politicians talk about the lethality of an AR-15. The truth is, I suppose that you could try to shoot a deer with an AR-15 if you're a good shot. It would probably work, but I don't even think it's a legal round for hunting.
Yeah. We can get into that when we do that, but there are a lot of factors that go into that. So that's part of what I'd like to do is discuss a little bit about that. It's a little bit of a hobby of mine. Also understanding the history of where the AR came from, through Armalite, and what went wrong with it in Vietnam. Had a bad reputation for a while.
Yeah,
all those things.
Well, yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, and actually, the guy that we ought to talk to, if we're going to do that whole segment, Ken, just to get another voice in, is George McSorry from the University of Wyoming. He is, if you're not familiar with him, he is
I know him.
The foremost expert in the country on the Second Amendment, and he's at the University of Wyoming. When I first started the program, if there was a gun subject that came up, I'd go see if I can find a video of George McSorry, and you find him all over the place on different panels, and Duke University, and there was all sorts of them. And to my great surprise, one day I discovered that he's actually a professor at the University of Wyoming.
So I met him when they started that
Firearms Research Center.
Yeah, the Firearms Research Center at the university. I ran a bill that wanted to create an oversight committee. And man,
he was not happy with that.
Not just him, but all of them in a big hurry. And I met him, and I was very impressed with him. I said, you know, this is terrific. I'm not worried about you. But one of these days you're going to retire, and I understand how the university works. And who do they replace you with? And I could see some problems, but that's a whole nother story. So it might be fun to have him on sometime.
You know, one of the biggest myths about, you know, floating around about the Second Amendment, and just about every liberal that I know has repeated this, that at the time the Constitution was written, at the time they crafted the Second Amendment, they could not have dreamed of firearms that fired automatically. They just didn't have any idea about the power of the firearms we have now. That's not true at all.
No.
What was it called? The pickle gun?
There were a number of
Gatling gun
of weapons systems that were out there, but beyond that, the other side of that is, well, they never meant for the common citizen to be able to have better weaponry. And that's exactly the opposite. Most common citizens had far better weapons than the military was using.
Yeah. Well, at least our military.
We probably talked ourselves into doing a segment on that, but I'd like to hear from folks out there if that's something that interests them.
Yeah. So if that's what you want to, something you're interested in, something you want to hear about, go ahead and shoot us a message, Facebook, email, david@cowboystatepolitics.com. Or you can, I'm pretty easy to reach on, Facebook or Messenger or any of those social media apps. All right. Well, let's see here. We only got about 4 minutes left. So I think that's a pretty good stopping point for the program today. If you're, make sure that you reach out to me. If you've got comments about the show or, suggestions or thoughts or whatever, go ahead and reach out to me. Don't forget about the Cowboy State Politics podcast. The new one will be published tomorrow. And of course, this show every Tuesday through Friday from 8 to 10. For now, my friends, from the base of the Bighorns, we'll see you tomorrow. Have a good afternoon.